Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today we need to talk about some pretty big trade rumors revolving around the Boston Bruins and their former top 15 pick, Jake DeBrusk, and a trade that could be happening very soon. Now, both Ryan Rishaug of TSN and Elliotte Friedman of Sportsnet have confirmed that Jake DeBrusk has requested a trade away from the Boston Bruins and that we could see a trade happen pretty soon. And there is a lot of potential trades and a lot of potential teams out there that would love to have Jake DeBrusk. But what are the latest trade rumors? What is the latest news? Who will end up trading for Jake DeBrusk? And what can an actual Jake DeBrusk trade look like? Watch till the end for all those details and all the latest trade rumors, and make sure that subscribe. And if you are new, 55% of the people that are watching are not subscribed. If you like hockey, if you like trade rumors, this channel is the place to be. Now, for a lot of you guys, Jake DeBrusk might be an interesting name in the trade block because we've been talking about him for a long time, but it seems like, especially recently, a trade talk and a trade has escalated, and again, Jake DeBrusk has asked for a trade away from the Boston Bruins. Now, Ryan Rishaug had the first tweet saying this: spoke with Rick Vallette today, agent for Jake DeBrusk. He confirmed that he asked for a trade over the weekend. It's felt a change of scenery moving forward would be beneficial. DeBrusk will remain with the team while the Bruins try and facilitate that request. And we also saw Elliotte Friedman expounding upon that, saying, hearing the Boston Bruins and Jake DeBrusk are working on the possibility of a fresh start for the player. Told nothing is imminent at this time, but something to keep an eye on. Two really interesting quotes, and again, going back to the Ryan Rishaug quote, saying that Jake DeBrusk has asked for a trade. It's really not too surprising since we've heard his name so clearly often in trade rumors, but especially recently, a situation that was already bad got even worse, especially over this past weekend. Now, if you guys don't know, Jake DeBrusk has been a little bit of a hot button issue when it comes to the Boston Bruins, and specifically their coaching. This past weekend, we saw Bruce Cassidy healthy scratch DeBrusk versus the Vancouver Canucks, and I think that's probably the reason why we did see DeBrusk ask for a trade. Now, to me, what's most interesting is why DeBrusk has asked for a trade and what's really going on in Boston. Now, Bruce Cassidy, after that scratch, also gave some comments on Jake DeBrusk's game and what he thinks of him right now, and one of the quotes was this: any 20-goal scorer still only scores once every 4 games if they're playing every game. More or less, so you still need the other things. A little bit more of an ask there on second effort away from the puck, working to keep it out of your net, etc. We understand certain guys can be physical when they're not scoring or bringing something, and for him, it's foot speed, and I'd like to see that every night. I'd like to see him impact the game with his foot speed every night in some shape or form, whether it's the forecheck, attacking the net, the penalty kill, whatever the case may be. Now, I was kind of expecting more of a criticism of DeBrusk's game, but it feels like to me that Cassidy still wants the best for DeBrusk, obviously as his coach, but it feels like he still, with this scratch, has the intent of scratching him and again giving him the chance to be better, and hopefully this scratch will affect him in the right way. But with the scratching of Jake DeBrusk, it seems like he and his camp took it personally and have officially requested the trade. It was like the final straw that broke the camel's back almost, which is interesting to me because again, it seems like they're still willing to give Jake DeBrusk chances. They want him to be better and they want him to be more consistent, and once he got scratched, I guess he took a different message and decided he did not want to be a Boston Bruin any longer, which again is interesting, especially for other teams trying to pick him up. And the point I'm trying to make here is that with Jake DeBrusk being scratched and with Bruce Cassidy trying to send a message to him, for Jake DeBrusk to be sent a message and as early as he gets scratched to instantly basically ask for a trade, I think is a little bit, not immature, but definitely hasty on Jake DeBrusk's part, and especially with the consistency, that's been a huge problem with DeBrusk's game. He has great stints, but seems to slow down and just have some awful weeks, and I feel like for Boston, there's a lot of criticism there that is deserved with Jake DeBrusk's game. When he is on his game, he is fantastic and can be a big part of a top middle six, but that great play is sometimes a rarity, and for the Boston Bruins, they haven't quite seen it really since his first couple of seasons. And again, for a team trading for him, it looks like you'll still have to be able to wrestle with that and wrestle with a player that as soon as he gets scratched, kind of decides to take it in his own hands and maybe gets unhappy because of it. I don't know. I feel like there's maybe a little bit of entitlement when it comes to Jake DeBrusk here, especially on a team like Boston. That's still a team that if I was on that franchise, if I was within that organization, I'd be doing my best to be as consistent as possible, and especially under a coach like Bruce Cassidy. I would listen to him, take my lesson, and hopefully get better next time, but it's obvious that Jake DeBrusk has not taken that route. Now, when it comes to actually Jake DeBrusk's game, I haven't really talked about it too much besides those inconsistencies, but so far this year in 17 games played, he's gotten 3 goals, 6 assists, and 3 assists, and 6 points on the year. Not the worst stats in the world, but especially for a player that was as good as he was in the first couple of years, it is a little bit disappointing. And comparing the stats, it's a pretty staggering difference. In his first NHL season, which is where he got the most points in his entire career so far, he got 16 goals, 27 assists, 43 points in 70 games played, and was around the same rate in the next season, where in 68 games played, he got 27 goals, 15 assists for 42 points. And at this point, this was a 22-year-old winger who was playing in the top 6, getting good power play time, and truly feeling just like an absolute monster and a confidence beast. And that was obviously during 2018 and a playoff series versus the Leafs, where he was also magnificent. So it was really DeBrusk's world at that point, and he was doing so well in his first couple of years. But after that is where we kind of started to feel the drop-off. In 2020, he got 35 points in 65 games, 19 goals, 16 assists, still solid, but last year's where it kind of all crumbled for him. In 41 games, had 5 goals, 9 assists, 14 points. Still an okay player, but definitely not as consistent and as confident and good as he was in the first couple of years. Again, that confidence is truly key. It felt like the consistency became an even bigger issue as he got older, which is not usually the case, but for Jake DeBrusk, it continued to be a problem, and this year he's kind of on the same route. Even though his production is looking to be better, in Boston it seems like his time is pretty much over. And especially with how Jake DeBrusk handled the situation, getting scratched by Bruce Cassidy. I mean, this guy is 25 years old. He should be at his full maturity. I feel like if you do trade for Jake DeBrusk, this is the type of player you're going to get. I don't really think personally that he's going to be able to reach those amazing heights that we once thought he could. I still think he could be a solid player, again, if that confidence gets better and he's able to maybe get a higher role or something. But this was still a player that got a lot of chances in Boston, had opportunities to be a great and true piece on this Bruins team, and that is unfortunately not the case. But I do think there is quite a bit of options out there in terms of teams that could trade for him. There's a lot of teams out there that could want a guy like this who is versatile, has a lower cap hit, and is still pretty young. I mean, at age 25, there is still some good potential there. Obviously, he's shown it in the past. Maybe there's some teams out there wanting to maybe put on a rejuvenation project to try to get Jake DeBrusk back to a great level. There is still potential there, but again, how we handle the Cassie and the scratching situation is still a little bit warning to me. Now, we heard quite a bit of rumors surrounding Jake DeBrusk about potential teams that could be interested a few months back, and the two teams that were the most prominent were the Edmonton Oilers and the Calgary Flames, who I think it was reported by The Athletic that those were the two teams that were the strongest in on him, and it honestly made sense, especially the Edmonton Oilers were a team that I always thought could work really, really well with Jake DeBrusk. He's from Edmonton, he's around that area, and this is a guy that I think under maybe Connor McDavid's wing or something could do very, very interesting things. But obviously they got Zach Hyman in the offseason, and that didn't really work out in the offseason either for a trade, but maybe Edmonton's able to go back to the type of situation and get it done. Now, Calgary's another one that is interesting to me. I don't know if Jake DeBrusk is really going to fit in Daryl Sutter's system, but if you're immature about a scratch under Bruce Cassidy, Sutter's going to be a hard realism sandwich for Jake DeBrusk if he does get sent there. He'll pretty much have to completely change his game to actually work in Calgary, so I'm not quite sure if that is the team that'll actually get this trade done. But maybe a hard-nosed coach that is truly up to that level of Daryl Sutter might be actually the best thing that could happen to Jake DeBrusk. It's really either this completely works out or it ends up horrible kind of situation when it comes to DeBrusk, especially in Calgary. But one team that is interesting to me in a potential Jake DeBrusk trade that is also from Canada is the Vancouver Canucks, and they haven't really been linked to DeBrusk too much. There has been a little bit of rumors around potentially a fit there, but to me, in Vancouver, if they are going to make a move, I think DeBrusk could be an interesting piece for them. Again, he is on a lower cap hit, and I think he's a guy that maybe could provide a spark there, but I do think they would have to make a move in terms of the coaching and the management before that happens. I don't want to see DeBrusk already with all these tribulations in Boston, having to go under Travis Green and then having to work under a new coach inevitably. I think that would also be a disaster. So I feel like Vancouver would have to make those management decisions and firings first before we see DeBrusk come on to Vancouver. But I do think it is a player that under the right system, under the right coach, can do some pretty major things. He did it in his first couple years in the NHL as a 21 and 22-year-old. This is still a guy that has talent and has potential, but again, it's all about that right fit and getting him in the mentality to truly succeed. Now, there are 5 teams that I think will be trading for Jake DeBrusk. 5 teams that I think make the most sense. Obviously, we got the Edmonton Oilers, the Flames, and the Canucks. 3 teams we've already talked about. Whether they actually get the deal done or not, we'll see. But I think those 3 teams all make sense for a deal. Number 4, though, I think is pretty interesting, and that is the LA Kings, a team that's already put on a ton of rejuvenation projects, most notably with Elias Anderson recently. They have experience with trying to turn young players into something greater, and I feel like Jake DeBrusk could honestly be pretty good under Tom McClellan. And then the number 5 team that I think could also make sense here is the Winnipeg Jets, actually. A team that is in a really interesting situation right now. They haven't been playing great, the greatest in the last couple of weeks, and this is a player that I think under Winnipeg's offensive juggernaut system, when it is going, I feel like could actually have a pretty good role. But this is a player that, again, needs to be under the right situation to truly succeed. I don't know if Paul Maurice will be that guy, but I do think alongside a guy like Pierre-Luc Dubois, it could work out pretty well for him. And last but not least, we now actually have to talk about what the trade price would be for Jake DeBrusk, and it's really hard to actually pinpoint because obviously this season has not gone his way, and last season hasn't gone his way. Really, the last season that was amazing for him was 2019, which is a pretty long time ago, all things considered, and I do think, even though his cap hit is pretty manageable, I do think there will be a lot of teams out there a little bit hesitant to actually go get him. He should be in the prime of his career at age 25, but he is still a guy that does have potential, so I can see where trades come from. Now, in terms of the actual contract, when it comes to Jake DeBrusk, I know I haven't even talked about it yet. When it comes to him right now, he will be an RFA after this next year, and he makes $3.6 million. So he's a guy that you can still have the rights for after this year, which is a pretty big thing, I think, for a lot of teams looking for a younger player like him. But again, it goes back to the trade price there and him not really being locked up long term. I think when it comes to DeBrusk, you could maybe get, if you're Boston, maybe a defenseman back for him that could maybe slot into their top 6. But let's just say in terms of pure value, in terms of draft picks, I do think that DeBrusk could at least get a third, maybe a third and something else on top of that. I don't know if he's going to get truly going to get a great second round pick or anything back, but I could still see potential for that. I just don't really see DeBrusk having a ton of value on this market, especially with a lot of wingers as well being available come trade deadline time. We'll see, but I do think with DeBrusk, again, that youth and that potential is still there, which is why he's so enticing right now. But I think it would most likely be like a third and a fourth, maybe and maybe like an AHL guy on top of that for Jake DeBrusk. I don't think it's going to break the bank or anything for teams to trade for him, though. And I feel like Boston as well is pretty out the door when it comes to DeBrusk's party, too. So I think both sides want to see a trade happen. That's obviously going to lower the trade price and make him a lot more enticing for NHL teams out there. But honestly, to me, I feel like a third and a fourth could honestly get it done. And again, maybe an NHL defenseman would be maybe a 1-for-1 for Jake DeBrusk. I could also see that being the case. But that is going to be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this trade rumor breakdown, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell for all the trade rumor content all in one place on this channel. And make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Comment down below what you guys think about these Jake DeBrusk rumors. Where do you see him going, and what would you trade for Jake DeBrusk? Let me know your thoughts. Make sure you share this video with your friends, get it to any hockey fans you guys know out there, and click on this card for all my trade rumor content right on the playlist. My name is Nathan. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.